Are you someone who is struggling with your weight and health due to erratic eating and or drinking habits, especially at weekends? If so, in this Kirk Miller Podcast episode, I'm going to positively challenge why this might be happening, and it's nothing to do with the diet plan. You might be thinking with the title, is your career or relationship making you fat? Maybe a little bit extreme, but having transformed so many people now, a lot of the roadblocks and barriers quite often that prevent people from dropping fat, keeping it off, more importantly, controlling their food, is down to what they do and who they're with. And I'm also that person that has experienced, even with a six-pack, having erratic eating habits and drinking habits at the weekend, and worse, due to not being fulfilled in what I do on a daily basis and who I was with, especially in terms of relationships and friendships. Because in order to truly master our fat loss, master the way we want to look, more importantly, control the habits that influence how we look, we must be at peace with ourselves. We must be at peace with what we do professionally. We must be at peace with our relationships. And this is something that I think is a subject that doesn't get brought up enough when we're trying to help people with their health and fitness. Because if it was as simple as diet plan, training plan, telling people just to move a little bit more, then the world would be a lot leaner and healthier place. And the reality is, when you're talking about this type of subject, you do have to face some very uncomfortable conversations. And obviously, I don't want to force my way on anyone, but if you are someone that potentially isn't maybe truly fulfilled with what you're doing in your career, whether you run a business or not, you are perhaps married or in a long-term relationship, and you know deep down in your heart it's maybe not the right one, or you're not appreciating it as much as what you could do, or perhaps you maybe have outgrown your friendship circle, or deep down you know you need to upgrade your friendship circle more in line with a healthier friendship circle, then I'm going to just explain a few things of what I've found over the last 12 to 20 years in relation to human behavior and what actually influences what we do, okay? For example, and I wanted to sort of show a little bit of honesty from my side first and foremost, because it's okay me making a big bold statement of, you know, is your relationship and career making you fat? But I've experienced 5 to 6 years of, if not longer, really struggling to control my binging at the weekend with food, booze, and as mentioned previously on another podcast, drugs. And that was down to being drastically unfulfilled as a plumber / gas engineer from the age of 20 to 26. So even though I had the body, I really couldn't control, you know, my eating and especially my drinking at the weekend. Because when you're doing something, which I was for 50 hours a week, especially when I was working, you know, on a Saturday to try and get some extra money, and it isn't meeting your needs, it doesn't make you happy, you're going to find a way to meet your needs, whether you like it or not. And quite often we find a way to meet our needs at weekends and after work for a lot of people, because the thing we've done prior to that wasn't making us happy. So you meet your needs in short-term ways, e.g. food, alcohol, drugs, porn, dare I say it, excessive, you know, social media scrolling, because you need to meet your needs in as many positive ways as possible. And if you've got a job, which I did, which isn't meeting those needs, or perhaps maybe you do enjoy your job, but there's a lot of tasks within that drain your energy, that then cause you to, you know, seek reward in the form of food, then that's going to continue till we address the problem. All right. And until I started doing something, as in now, transforming people that I actually love doing, the reactive behavior patterns at the weekend certainly didn't change. So it's really, really important that you really identify, you know, and ask yourself some honest questions in relation to your career. And that's what I certainly had to do. Irrelevant the six-pack. Same with relationships. When you're in a relationship, which I had a couple during that period where deep down, we're not on the same page, don't share the same values, and you're bored in that relationship very quickly, then when you're with that person, which I was a couple of times, it's nothing against them, it's just obviously, not the right fit. When you're with that person, you drink more excessively, you eat more excessively, because you're not mentally stimulated by that person. And it really is that important. So for me, where I'm at now, where I am loving what I'm doing, and I am fulfilled in my relationship. Of course, these things aren't perfect, but you're getting more pleasure rather than pain. Then it's a lot easier to control your eating decisions, and especially in relation to food, you're going to enjoy those social occasions a lot more with an element of emotional control, as opposed to filling the void for what's missing in either your professional or personal relationships. Okay? And one thing you need to continually evaluate, which influences all your decisions, is your state. And I'll talk about this repeatedly on, future podcasts and YouTube episodes. But in the same way, my state was constantly in a reactive state, which obviously influenced my decisions for the negative. What you need to do is continually evaluate the state you're in, like during your work hours. You need to evaluate the state you're in when you're with those group of friends, that partner, and ask yourself, is my pattern of focus, language, physiology with that person causing me to be reactive with my behavior afterwards, or proactive? Because the more you can control your state, the better decisions you make, especially with food. And the problem with your work is, if you are constantly stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, think of the patterns of language you go into, think of what you do with your body, think of the patterns of focus you go into if you're not fulfilled and you're overwhelmed and you're stressed. That is going to cause a decision. And so often people who struggle with their food in particular, and alcohol, especially at weekends, is they're stressed, they're tired, they're bored, they're anxious, they're overwhelmed. So it isn't necessarily the not knowing what to eat, it's the emotion and the state behind the decision which controls the inability to, not eat the foods that deep down are in line with the body and the health they wish to live with. So awareness of state is massive. So start getting very, very clear during the week, during the weekend, like with your work, with your partner, with your friends. Are you struggling to control your state? And if, for example, in those areas, you are maybe happy, but you're just not controlling your state, what can you do to control your state for the better? If the career isn't the problem, the relationship isn't the problem, the friends aren't the problem, it's just an awareness of your state that you need to address. But if you find that you're having to fight continually to try and be in a positive state, in a proactive state, then that's where we really do need to face, some uncomfortable conversations about what we need to do and what we need to change, to help elevate our state, to obviously improve our decisions. Okay? So state is something we need to evaluate, and will control your decisions short term. But what we need to really get even more honest with is the way we're meeting our needs. And I love talking about this subject, because when I learned about this more in depth, it really did change the game of my understanding of why I'd failed to control my eating, for example, in the past, failed to control my drinking, but more importantly, allows me now to obviously help people who struggle with this, from a client perspective. And that is an understanding of human needs. And this is why what you do professionally, your purpose, your mission is absolutely pivotal, okay? Because if what you're doing on a day-to-day basis isn't fulfilling your human needs or meeting them in empowering ways, then you're going to find a way to meet your needs in disempowering ways. So in relation to your career, if we go through the human needs just now, does your career give you certainty? Does your career give you variety? Does it give you a sense of significance? Do you feel important? Do you get a sense of love and connection? Does it help you grow? Does it help you contribute? All right. And if you find, whether you've got a business or not, that it's not meeting those needs as frequently or as optimally as what you'd like to, then we need to ask ourselves, if this is my career, this is my choice, how can I start meeting my needs within this job, this profession, or what do I need to change? Are there things, for example, within your business that you should be delegating? Do you need to think who, not how, if you've got a consistent role and responsibility that is just draining your energy? And this is what I often find with business owners, because look, the reality is everything isn't always going to be perfect. You're not always going to enjoy everything what you do. But sometimes you can learn to appreciate the task a little bit more and change the way you look at it, or it's simply a cue that we need to delegate to someone else. Because if we're getting continual negative resistance and a continual negative emotion, and we're doing something on a day-to-day basis which really isn't meeting our needs, then it will cause reactive behavior patterns, as I've said before, in the evening and especially at weekends. And your biggest feedback for me as whether or not that what you're doing professionally is negatively impacting your eating and or drinking, or worse, it's a continual pattern of on it, off it with your eating and drinking at the weekend. So if you're continually telling yourself that, I'm going to eat healthier this weekend, I'm going to make better decisions, I'm going to drink a little bit less, but you're not doing it, then we need to really evaluate what are we doing during the week that is causing the urge to overeat, drink, or both. And we need to evaluate, are we happy in our day-to-day relationships and friendship circles? Are we happy in our relationship and our friendship circles, or what's missing that we're trying to fill the void of with food or booze? If we don't want to change that relationship or friendship, what can we do to appreciate it more and to meet our needs more empoweringly in those relationships and friendship circles? Or do we need to change something? Okay? Because even in relation to relationships and friendships, if your relationship isn't giving you an element of certainty, variety, of course, love and connection, right? A sense of significance, growth, contribution, then we're going to find a way to meet those needs, in negative ways. Same with friendships. I've been in social circles over the years, in my early 20s, where you're just with those people really out of habit, and you're just excessively eating, excessively drinking, just because you've got into a process of doing that. But deep down, I think one of the brutal questions you can ask yourself, when you're addressing your friendship circles, for example, is, if we weren't drinking together and or eating together excessively, would I still have a mentally stimulating conversation with that person? Do they make me laugh? Do they make me feel good? Are they helping me become the person that deep down I want to become, or they slow me down? Same in your relationships. As much as we need to take personal responsibility for our thoughts, our feelings, our decisions, ultimately, when you're choosing someone to spend a lot of time with, that will rub off on you at some point. Okay, so we need to ask ourselves, am I with these people or person out of habit, or do I need to have an uncomfortable conversation? Okay, and a real simple framework and couple of questions in relation to career, relationship, friendships. Go through all of them individually. With your career, are you happy? Is it meet my needs? With your relationship, am I happy? Is it meet my needs? With my friendships, Am I happy with these people? Are they people that share the same values? And are they meeting my needs in empowering ways? So are all of these areas meeting my needs long term as well as short term? Okay, can I see myself being progressively healthier as the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in this job, with that partner, with these friends, or are things only going to get worse from here? Okay, because what I did, you might be thinking, okay, Kirk, it's all right knowing this, but what can I do if I'm in a career that maybe isn't fulfilling me, in a relationship that deep down in my heart I'm without a habit, or I just know they're not the right fit for me. What I did when I was in that job as a plumber, and I knew things had to change. Okay, I knew after winning that men's health comp that I was born to change lives, to lead people to a better them, help people become the person I've always been capable of. And what I did, obviously, I couldn't just quit my job. I did have bills to think about. I had responsibilities. But what I did around my work, I started studying in whatever 30-minute windows I possibly could with something I was passionate about, which is, of course, was initially personal training, in terms of qualification. So there's always something you can do. Okay, so if you know in your heart deep down that you can't see yourself in this career long term and it's negatively impacting your eating or drinking habits, think about what you're passionate about and what can you start learning to potentially open up another career pathway. Okay, or if maybe you are in a career, you have got a business that you've just fell into a little bit of boredom with it. How can you start making it a little bit more exciting? How can you start setting yourself some positive challenges that will all of a sudden start elevating your needs, in more empowering ways to help you grow again? Because quite often when we get bored professionally, especially if we've had a business for a long time, it's just a cue that we need to expand the business a little bit more, maybe make it a bit more exciting, create another revenue stream. Because that obviously gets you excited again in the same way when you first started the business. Okay, but when we get stale, when we stand still, that's when again we start negatively making decisions, especially in relation to food and booze. Okay, and then in relationships, you've just got to be brutally honest. You've got to be brutally honest. If you find you're in a relationship and it stood still for a little while, but deep down in your heart, you want it to work, then how can you make it better? How can you start asking better questions? How can you learn to appreciate the relationship a bit more, make it a little bit more exciting? Okay, and I'm still learning with this too. I'm not perfect listening to this, and my partner will tell you that, but at least I'm always trying to be better. Okay, but be honest with yourself. And if you're really, really not happy and that relationship's causing you more pain than pleasure, and it has been maybe for the last sort of 6 months to a year or more, then you need to be brave enough to fucking end it. It's not what people want to hear, but deep down, you have to live life on your own terms, and you can't give what you don't have. And if that relationship isn't making you happy, then you're never going to make someone else happy. Okay, so you need to be really, really honest with yourself. And then in relation to friendships, be really, 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 really precious with your time. Really, really precious with your time. Of course, we can't always have friends that, are elite performers and, that are, all they talk about is money and success. You need people around you that make you laugh too, and you've got a blend of friends. But I firmly believe that you should be with people that are adding value to your life. They're mentally stimulating you. They're positive with their words. They're positive with their habits. They're positive with the way they look at life. Because we all know negative people who we can say the opposite about. But be precious with your time. Because we've got 168 hours in a week. Okay? And the friendships we choose to utilize within that time, the relationships we have, and what we do in relation to our work, our mission, our purpose, is playing a monumental role in how you eat, how you think, how often you exercise, whether you do that with pleasure or you do it from a place of pain. Like, it really is making that much difference, okay? And I want to end, as always, with 3 honest questions. Because as with all these podcasts, I really want to start your way of thinking a little bit differently and paint some awareness, because I firmly believe the more aware you are, the more you evaluate better, the better you'll grow, the better you'll look, the better you'll feel, okay? So there's 3 questions that have really helped me and clients in the past and now, of course. Number 1, what area of life am I avoiding change right now at the expense of my health? So what area of life right now am I avoiding change right now at the expense of my health? What conversation do you keep putting off? What conversation do you keep putting off? Do you keep patting down each week? And how is it costing how you look, how you feel, and how you eat? Number 2, how will my health and life be held back if I don't have the courage to embrace the conversations and changes I need to? So if you don't embrace that conversation, or maybe make that change in your business, your career, how might life look in the next 6 months, year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? But I always like to look at that question in relation to a year. If I don't embrace that conversation or make that change, how will my life look any different in a year's time? And more poignantly to this podcast, how might my health, my body weight, my internal confidence with how I feel, and my external confidence with how I look, how will that be negatively impacted if I don't embrace that conversation or change right now? Thirdly, what is the one conversation or action I'm dedicated to addressing in the next 5 days that will have a positive impact on how I feel and my health long term? Bit of a long-winded sentence, but if you really take time with that question, it's amazing what answers will follow. And the reason I've said in the next 5 days, create a sense of urgency when you ask yourself that question, because otherwise the weeks will progress, the months will progress, you won't follow through and nothing will change. And you'll still be in that reactive behavior pattern with your food, booze, or both. And with that, of course, comes weight gain, comes a lack of confidence, lack of energy. So what is the one conversational action you can dedicate to actually implement in the next 5 days? And as always, I want to leave you with a quote. And this is a really simple but powerful one that really helps me when I'm, feel like, staying small or not embracing change. Choose courage over your own comfort. Be vulnerable but brave. It usually pays off. Think about a time when you've embraced an uncomfortable conversation, you've been brave, you've really been courageous. It could be professionally, it could be personally. 99% of the time, it pays off. Probably a lot of the things that are going well in your life just now is when you've embraced an uncomfortable conversation, you've been very courageous. And do exactly the same when it comes to how you evaluate in your career, your relationships, your friendships. And I guarantee you'll start eating better and you'll live a healthier life without question. So, as always, thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Share with any friends who you feel need to hear this, and I'll see you next time.